muted, but I Welcome everyone to the regular meeting of the City Council for Monday, December 20th. I will ask the City Clerk to call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Bushy.
Present.
Councilmember Hill is absent. Councilmember Kurtz.
Present.
Councilmember Yeren Scalati, I believe she's absent. And Mayor Kate.
Present. Thank you. So we have 3 of us this evening. And again, welcome all to the council meeting of December 20th. Tonight is the last legislative meeting for the council in 2021. So as we look back at the year, I know I speak for the council when I say we are so grateful for the resilience of our community. It was not an easy year. We're grateful to everyone who got vaccinated, then boosted, and continued to follow COVID-safe protocols. We are grateful to our board and commission members who volunteered their precious time to San Rafael. We are grateful to our staff who navigated the year's uncertainty like the professionals they are and ensured that our city continued to meet the moment. You can see some of them on the screen now if you haven't tuned into a meeting. Our staff starts at the beginning with their videos on, and there are many more who are behind the scenes every day making our city run. We are grateful to our residents who recognize the importance of partnership with the city and show up to participate and give input. So together, in community, we can wrestle with the many challenging issues, including housing, homelessness, climate change, economic recovery, and racial justice. And we are grateful for the kindness and compassion of our community, both supporters and critics, as we are in this together, and it is through working in respectful collaboration that we're going to create the San Rafael that we all want in 2022. In closing, I'd like to include a land acknowledgement that honors the original Indigenous people who have lived and are living in San Rafael. This city is traditionally home to the Coast Miwok people, and we thank the original caretakers of this land. So thank you, and now I will invite the City Clerk to share with the public how they can participate this evening.
Thank you, Mayor Kate. At this time, I'd like to ask staff to turn their cameras off. Thank you. This meeting is being recorded and streamed live to YouTube, where viewers can provide comments by telephone by calling 669-900-9128 and using the meeting ID 899-2635-9885#, or comment and watch directly through Zoom using the link on the agenda. If you're commenting over the telephone, please press star nine when Mayor Kate opens the public comment period. Once you hear a notification that the host is inviting you to speak, please press star 6 to unmute yourself. If you're commenting through Zoom, please use the raise hand button to let us know that you would like to speak and wait until you've been unmuted. If you experience any technical difficulties, please email city.clerk@cityofsanrafael.org. Closed captioning is available for this meeting and is accessible by selecting the drop-down next to the red live button on the upper left-hand corner of your screen, then selecting View Stream on Custom Streaming Service. Thank you.
Thank you. We start our meetings with open time for public expression. This is time for the public to express, give input on any topics not on tonight's agenda. City Clerk?
Thank you. So once again, to comment on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature. And if commenting by phone, please press star 9. Once you hear a notification that the host is inviting you to speak, please press star 6 to unmute yourself. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to provide public comment, and they will be muted once time has elapsed. I do see a couple of hands raised.
Hello, this is Amy Lykover talking. I'm calling in today because thanks are overdue to city staff and to those who made, I think, a major improvement in the downtown. And every time that I go downtown, I am so grateful for 2 simple factors, that C Street and D Street are two-way. And I mean, this may seem very, very simple, but I remember when the planning for the safety building was undertaken, and I mentioned that, I think, to Chief Gray, that I feel this sense of gridlock when I am on those 2 streets and you just can't access things. And I know that this did not come from my comment, but all I can tell you is it's so lovely to be able to park in front of the post office. It's so wonderful to be able to access the other streets without driving around and around. That's the first thing. So Jim, would you be so kind as to get that to the right person? And then, and I've meant to thank you guys for a long time. The second thing is I had a wonderful experience today, and I wanted you to know about it, with a new city staff member, Raid, who's in the emergency services department. I invited him, and he took me up on this, maybe because I speak French with him, on this offer to show him San Rafael's neighborhoods. And so we spent 2 hours, me introducing him. I drove him around the whole city until he had to get back to work. And I showed him all the different neighborhoods. I showed him these inaccessible, twisty-turny streets that emergency vehicles will have to access. I went up and down hills with him, and it was really a wonderful experience. And so again, Jim, if you could get the word out, I've invited other department heads, but I would like to take any newcomers to the city staff who might be interested in getting to know the neighborhoods on a tour. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
This is Ava Crisanti. I'm calling in with regard to the death of a 65-year-old woman at your homeless internment camp on 5th Street, which is run by your police and your apparently entirely uncredentialed, quote, mental health liaison, Lynn Murphy. This death occurred on December 9th. Apparently, news of the death was not relayed in time for the Marin IJ article that ran on the 12th. But it's important to record that because it occurred on a site that you specifically chose to intern unhoused individuals. This is a camp that is majority Black and Latino. It's had the least media coverage, and it's actually had the media coverage it has received has been really a whitewash, both from the Marin IJ consistently has underreported the abuses in that camp, and also, whitewashed in the Pacific Sun, unfortunately. And I think this needs to be addressed. I think there needs to be a state investigation of what's been occurring there. It's a little disconcerting that you did not disclose this death anywhere publicly. You didn't have to name the person, but you had a responsibility to let people know that people were dying in that camp. That has no bathrooms, no showers, no electricity, no running water, and that is located underneath a very noisy freeway overpass. But what's really disconcerting is that instead of telling us that, you put out a PR release about meditation classes that Lynn Murphy was running at the camp, which is bizarre. People don't need meditation. They need housing, and they shouldn't be kept in such cruel conditions. And you should rightly be sued for that.
Thank you. And I will note actually that that actually is an agenda item later where we will be talking further about the service support area as well as homelessness. So if other members of the public would like to comment, that would be a good time. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kristen Vandeveer. I am the founder of Meditation Without Borders, and I am actually the person who was in charge of the meditation classes that were in the service support area. And I just had some comments about this particular, about Lynn Murphy and this service support area. It has been put into my awareness, and this most recent comment makes it even more clear that some people seem to be taking a very active role in trying to undermine Lynn and undermine what is happening here. I would be very surprised to hear if this person actually knew Susan, who is the woman who died, or have actually talked to any of the people in this camp. It's interesting that she talks about that they don't need meditation, when actually we had a very positive response, and it was an incredible experience for all involved. The people who are there on the ground trying to help these people, I'm incredibly impressed. Lynn Murphy knows every single person. I was there today, this morning with her, distributing blankets, tents, and coats and other warm things and raincoats because of the upcoming rains. And I doubt these people who are trying to attack her are also doing things like this. Yes, it's not a very perfect situation. This is an impossible situation that Lynn and the others trying to help these people are faced with, but they are doing everything they can. They genuinely care very deeply for this group of individuals. There's Robert, who is very upset about Susan, who had to go and get his leg looked at.
Thank you. And as I said, so we have 2 minutes of public comment, and there will be an opportunity to further address this agenda item. So feel free to call back in. Sorry, the timer, I think, cut off the last 2 speakers. Okay.
So I see no other hands raised. I'll give everyone just a couple more seconds. I do see another hand raised now. So just a reminder for anyone who's calling in, please press *9 to raise your hand. And I'll unmute next speaker.
Hi, I will save further comments for when the agenda item comes up, but the speaker, 2 speakers ago, I believe her name was Ava, was simply factually incorrect on a number of things, and I think that should be noted. There are bathrooms there. I believe Officer Murphy has various kinds of credentials. I would just like it to be on the public record that there were a number of factual errors in her statement. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And again, when that agenda item comes up, we definitely want to ensure that staff speaks to that. And I always remind the public to really have the comments be on the agenda items or on the subjects and towards the council, as opposed to not commenting on each other. Thank you.
I see no further public comment.
Okay, with that, I will close the public comment and bring on City Manager Schutz for his last City Manager Report of 2021. We know it's going to be a great one.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Thank you, Mayor Kate and City Council. My announcements tonight are all on the topic of schedules around this holiday season between now and the next City Council meeting. And Mayor Kate, you mentioned in your opening remarks that this is the last City Council meeting of 2021. I wanted to add my thanks to the City Council and all city staff and our entire extended community for everything that was done to make San Rafael a better place in 2021. As we do annually, the city administrative offices will be closed the last week of December, and the first City Council meeting in January, which would have been January 3rd, is canceled. The City Council will reconvene on January 18th for the first meeting of 2022. During the 1-week closure of the administrative offices, our fire, paramedic, and police services will always be staffed 24/7 as usual. And those are 24/7, 365 services. Our public works and sanitation district crews will be staffed and monitoring emergency maintenance requests as well. I recently was preparing an end of year recap, and I talked about some of the challenges of the pandemic and 2020 and said that 2021 could be remembered as the year things started to get better. However, better is a relative term, and now we are hearing fears of COVID-19 case rates and hospitalizations rising again as we enter the end of 2021 and enter the new year. So with that in mind, we had been targeting the January 18th City Council meeting as the first one that we could likely be back in person in the council chambers. And it looks like that won't be able to happen before February, and staff will continue to work with the mayor on a month-to-month basis until we can return in person. So we'll continue to evaluate that monthly. And I know everyone is anxious to get back into the chambers and meet in person, and we'll continue to look at that. One big indicator that we'll know in mid-January is what happened with case rates and hospitalizations through the holiday season and due to holiday travel and that sort of thing. So that will be very important as we think about whether it seems safe to be able to meet in our council chambers in February. And I didn't want to end on a negative note, so I'm going to add in a couple announcements that relate to the first half of January. One is that the city is seeking to fill a position on the Planning Commission and also a youth member position on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Applications for those positions they take place online and they're due on January 7th. So that's coming up pretty soon into the new year, which is why I wanted to bring that up. You can also find more information at the city's website, cityofsanrafael.org, and it's boards-commissions. So cityofsanrafael.org and then /boards-commissions. Also coming up in the first part of January, our nominations are due for the 2022 Citizen of the Year Award, which recognizes a San Rafael community member who's made exceptional contributions to the city. And the selection guidelines and the criteria, and most importantly, the online nomination form are also all found on the City of San Rafael website. Maybe the fastest way is typing Citizen of the Year into the search bar, which is the main big search bar on the website. But it's also cityofsanrafael.org/Citizen of the Year with dashes in between each of the words, citizen-of-the-year. So while we are in this holiday period and thinking about the new year, it's a great time to consider serving on a city board or commission. We've got those two that I mentioned, and we'll have more coming up throughout the year, and a great time to nominate someone for the Citizen of the Year Award who you've noticed is doing great work in San Rafael and for the San Rafael community. So thank you, Mayor Kate and City Council. I will turn it back over to you, Mayor Kate.
Thank you, City Manager Schutz. And if you don't already subscribe to the snapshot, please go ahead and do that. All the information that Jim just went through is always in the snapshot, and whatever is going to be coming up on the council or any decisions that were made in hindsight is always on the snapshot. I always eagerly wait for it. And there's always a little photo quiz too, to try to name that one, the first one. So thank you, City Manager, for all the steady guidance and leadership that you provided our community over the year. And we look forward to 2022. We're going to have optimism. We're going to start with optimism. So thank you. Okay, with that, I will bring it back to the council members to report out on what they've been up to. So you would like to have public comment. Thank you, City Clerk. Thank you. Sorry, I was going on to the next one, but yep, I will pause.
To comment on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature. And if commenting by telephone, please press *9. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to provide public comment, and they will be muted once time has elapsed. I do see a couple of hands raised. And just a reminder, this will be for the City Manager's report.
Hello, this is Grace Garrity. Jim, I was wondering, since we are now organized around districts, I didn't see on the city website, the Planning Commission is for what district?
So we will take public comment, and then if there's any questions that need to be answered, we'll turn it to the City Manager at the end of public comment. Thank you.
Thanks. Definitely, in terms of going forward into the year, this is Ava Crisanti. I think the city manager should take a hard look at the non-compliance of the San Rafael Police Department with Lexipol policy. I received some very interesting emails from the city attorney, and she indicated that the fact that Lynn Murphy and sworn and non-sworn officers within the police department are permitted to turn on and off their body cams at their own discretion, as I have videotaped them doing at the camp, which I have frequently visited. She states that this is in compliance with Lexipol policy, and she provided an extract of Lexipol policy that clearly shows that they're not in compliance. If they were in compliance with Lexipol policy, they would activate their body cam prior to entering the camp, and then they would not turn it on and off and on and off constantly. I was there today, and I was told by more people that it's very disconcerting to them that the police constantly do this in San Rafael. as a lot of reasonable people have pointed out, it defeats the entire purpose of body cam to turn it on and off at the individual officer's discretion. There obviously needs to be some cleaning house with regard to this department. And I think that the very provisional body cam video that I was able to retrieve through CPRA shows some real problems with your department. Unfortunately, when I'm only given this much time to talk about it, I think you should expand public comment back to 3 minutes so we could address this. But you've got some issues with your police department you should address. Thank you.
Again, right now we are receiving public comment on the city manager report and the items he spoke to.
I see no further hands raised. I'll give everyone a couple more seconds just in case. Once again, if you're calling in to raise your hand, you'll need to press *9. I see no further public comment.
Okay, thank you. I will close the public comment. City manager, I will turn it to you.
Sure. Yeah, I was advertising for the city clerk, the recruitment for a couple different boards and commissions, one of which being the Planning Commission. That is a citywide commission, as all the boards and commissions are citywide and not by district. So it's the city council members that are by district, and those elections take place by district for the individual council members, but not for the Planning Commission or the Design Review Board or other boards and commissions of the city.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, we will bring it now. We'll bring it back to the council members to report out, and I will start with the Vice Mayor.
Thank you, and I will continue your theme of optimism. I attended the MCC-MC Water Committee meeting. We continue to meet, and notwithstanding the lovely rains that we are experiencing, the long-term policy issues that have been illuminated by the recent drought have not gone away, and we will continue our work to address those issues. I also attended meetings of the San Rafael Sanitation Board and the Central Marin Sanitation Agency meeting. A happy sustainability tidbit from CMSA. CMSA property has a large range of open space. In that open space, we have a beekeeper who keeps hives, and the beekeeper shared some honey with the agency as part of the holidays. So that's a sweet perk of sustainability at CMSA. And ending on the highest possible note, in my opinion, the lighted boat parade. Because I went first, I get to all of the city council members and the mayor attended at Chief Spiller's invitation. And I would definitely like to thank the skipper and crew of the Mission City. The boat who was full of hearty souls out in the rain, notwithstanding the elements. We were there, and also to thank the skippers of the few boats who joined us, all looking lovely in the rain, but to celebrate a wonderful San Rafael tradition in the end of the year. Thanks.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And we had a hearty spectators who were making it worth our while to be out there. There was a lot of happy holidays yelling to each other. So it was very fun. So thank you for reporting out on that. Councilmember Kurtz.
Thank you. And thank you, Vice Mayor, for bringing up the boat. That's on my list as well. And it was my first time on the boat. And everyone was clear, rain or shine. So it was very nice. And it really was a great opportunity to see the community on both sides of the canal. So it was good. MWPA, Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, is really focused right now on getting everything in place as we move forward to 2022. A lot of projects are already underway. This is an area that is continuing to focus and refocus on how best to manage resources to ensure as much work can get done as possible in the most efficient way. So there'll be lots of more information about what's coming up with MWPA. And the other area is Age Friendly San Rafael. The team met and they're working on their plans for 2022 and looking at some new opportunities on how to expand the work that they're currently doing around outreach and communication and engagement. And we will be working with Raid from the emergency fire department and the emergency preparedness group, have a table, hopefully no rain, because it will not be rain or shine, it will only be shine. We will have a table January, I believe it's January 16th at the farmers market on Thursday. And we will be promoting age-friendly San Rafael, as well as checking with people on Alert Marin and Nixle and helping people sign up. So stop by, it'll be fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Fantastic. And I will just underscore all the comments already about the lighted boat parade. It was a fun time for all of us. Okay, so I attended the Transportation Authority of Marin meeting. It was actually on a Monday versus a Thursday. We received the 580-101 interchange presentation that we've actually had here in our council meetings. And you'll be happy to know that the board voted in alignment with the city in that shedding some of the options. So, and I can't remember, I think there are about 7 or 8 that have been moving forward. And I think there were 5 that the board voted to not have moved forward. So to really start to focus TAM's effort as we go forward. So was grateful for that presentation, that conversation with the TAM board. The last 2 items I'll share is we had a community circle. This was part of the ongoing community engagement as we continue to evolve. How do we evolve? Recognizing we're still on Zoom oftentimes, we are in districts and we want to be even more inclusive. The community circle was in both Spanish and English. It was held via Zoom. We had great turnout and got input on what does it look like as we meet in 2022, both broad community conversations where I would chair the meeting, as well as district ones where each district council member would be presiding, as it were. Might be an ice cream social. I guess you could preside over an ice cream social. So those are things that will happen in 2022. We certainly have missed interacting with our community in person. And as Jim had said, we're going to be careful about that going into it, but we are going to have more opportunities. I do agree that public comment for when it's 2 minutes, it's hard to get into conversation. So these meetings will be the opportunity for our community to get in conversation with the council over issues that are important to all of us. And finally, I want to close on an up note, and that is we had the Boards and Commissions Volunteer Appreciation Party. And again, it was very safe. We all had masks on. There were little cupcakes that people had to take home to eat. But again, it was nice to see people in person, to thank them for giving their time over the past year. And as Jim said, there's opportunities always to get more involved if you are so inclined. So thank you to both of you, as well as to Councilmember Uran-Sculati and Councilmember Hill, who aren't here tonight, but we know that they've been showing up for the city the last couple of weeks as well. The next item, thank you. I guess I'm just eager. It must have been that cup of coffee I had this afternoon. Sorry about that, everyone. So public comment, please, City Clerk.
Thank you. Once again, if you'd like to provide any public comment, you can use the raise hand feature, or if you're calling in, please press *9 and wait for the host to unmute yourself. Request for you to unmute, and then you'll need to unmute yourself by pressing *6. I see no hand raised right now. I'm going to give everyone a couple more seconds. I see no public comment.
Thank you. We will move on to the consent calendar. Are there any items that my colleagues would like to hold from the consent calendar? Okay, not seeing any. I will open the public comment on all the items. So that's consent calendar items 5A through 5H. We'll take public comment right now.
To comment on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature. And if dialing in by phone, please press *9. I see no hands raised. I see no public comment.
Okay, thank you. I will close the public comment and I request a motion on the consent calendar.
I move approval of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye, that motion carries 3-0. So our first item, or the next item, we've had many items already on our agenda, is update on homelessness. It is an informational report that we will be hearing and receiving. So I will turn it over to the staff member who appears on the screen next. There. Hi.
Hi, thank you very much.
How are you? Nice to see you.
Good. thank you for the opportunity. I also just want to take a minute to say thank you very much for allowing me to join this amazing team as the city does wonderful things. We'll be presenting in tandem with the chief, our information report on the homelessness and the SSA. I'm going to turn over to the chief, and he's going to talk primarily about what's going on with the SSA and some of the things that are occurring there. And then he's going to turn it back over to me, where I'm going to talk about a grant that we are applying for. Chief?
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, Mayor Kate, members of the council. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present to you tonight. This is an informational staff report, and what we're presenting tonight serves as an update on homelessness in San Rafael. The last update presented to the council on June 7th of 2021 serves as background for this informational update. I will try to keep moving. There's a lot of work going on by your city staff here, as well as our community partners. So I will endeavor to move through this as thoroughly but as swiftly as I can. So our report that we're presenting tonight picks up where we left off during the last update this past June, and will provide an update on specific elements of this 3-track plan introduced in the previous report. A few key dates and milestones to share demonstrate some of the highlights that we've realized these past 5 years. For example, spring of 2016, the Marin Homeless Outreach Team was launched, developing customized housing strategies across providers throughout Marin County. Mid-2017, Coordinated Entry System was launched, and this is a customized strategic approach to a countywide program. And this is utilizing objective measurements of vulnerability to determine housing prioritization. Mid-2017, Marin Housing Authority pledged annual slots of Section 8 vouchers for referrals for coordinated entry. State released funding for whole person care at that time to provide resources to high utilizers of the healthcare system. 2017 to the present, Coordinated Entry System has housed 427 people who have been previously experiencing chronic homelessness. From 2018 to the present, Community Homeless Fund supported all Marin jurisdictions in the area of homelessness. In the fall of 2020, the City of San Rafael allocated $1.54 million towards Marin's Project Home Key site at 3301 Kerner. And then also in the fall of 2020, the City of San Rafael allocated $750,000 toward the Mill Street 2.0 permanent supportive housing and shelter site. Summer of 2021, the regional expansion of case management took place, including San Rafael's allocation of $260,000 specifically for case management services. And then in the summer of this past summer, 2021, the service support area was launched. And this opened to focus supportive services to individuals within the San Rafael community who are experiencing homelessness. A lot of significant work done within our community. As an update to each of the 3 tracks that were recommended back in June, I'll share the first is the utilization of Project Room Key and Project Home Key, utilizing those existing beds to house individuals and match them with case management. There are currently 40 hotel room beds through Project Room Key in San Rafael that the County of Marin is funding with state reimbursement. This program is funded at least through January of 22. There are also beds that will become available at our Project Home Key site in San Rafael at the Kerner site, which is being operated as a transitional facility while Homeward Bound's new project on Mill Street is under construction. The Mill Street 2.0 project, which is partially funded by the City of San Rafael's Affordable Housing Trust, is expected to open and accept individuals in the summer of 2022, probably August of 2022. And this will include 32 permanent supportive housing units in addition to shelter beds. Once Homeward Bound moves back to the Mill Street site, the Kerner location will undergo improvements, which will ultimately create 44 permanent supportive housing units as well. In addition to what I previously mentioned, there's a Project Home Key site in Corte Madera called Casa Buena. It's expected to open in the spring of 22, March of 2022. and this will add yet another 18 units of permanent supportive housing for individuals experiencing homelessness. So for illustration purposes, you can see a table on page 2 of that staff report that kind of highlights the availability and the housing that's coming online. Track 2 of these coordinated efforts is leveraging one-time stimulus monies toward the coordinated entry while working to mitigate current health and safety concerns. As previously mentioned, case management staff's recommendation was implemented by the council through the allocation of that $260,000 to support increased housing and case management. I'm sure you're all aware that case management allows local cities and towns to continue to support high needs, chronically homeless individuals with the ability to transition into permanent housing. A second component to track 2 includes code amendments, restricting encampments in certain high-risk fire areas, as well as critical facilities throughout the City of San Rafael to address public health and safety concerns. The council subsequently approved those code amendments as part of the July 6th council meeting. Track 2 recommendations also included the development of a designated area for individuals who are experiencing homelessness where they can have access to clean camping facilities, restrooms, and storage. This recommendation became what is now known as the Service Support Area. The SSA, as it's often referred to, is intended to be a temporary solution to assist individuals experiencing homelessness. Prior to the implementation of the SSA in July, there were extensive encampments under US 101 in the downtown San Rafael area. All Caltrans property for the most part. The city collaborated with Caltrans to relocate these encampments to the block between 5th Street and Mission. That area was able to then be focused for supportive services. The SSA ultimately represents a collaboration and a partnership with involvement from many local service providers who have a focus and a mission on helping individuals who are experiencing homelessness. The SSA creates a central designated space for our community partners to provide services, and they're taking advantage of that, some weekly, some multiple times per week. But examples of this include the Downtown Streets team, Ritter Center, Marin Health and Human Services, Marin Humane Society, the CARE team, Salvation Army, as well as Marin Street Chaplaincy. Many of the service providers have provided feedback to staff across the larger organization that the service support area allows them to reach more people and to make greater impacts than if encampments were spread out throughout the larger community. As part of the collaboration with Caltrans, the County of Marin, CHP, and multiple service organizations, the SSA that is located between 5th and Mission provides security full-time, 24/7. The city has provided tents and cots and sleeping bags. 3 restrooms are on site with ongoing maintenance, routine maintenance, hand washing stations, electrical outlets, phone charging station, garbage pickup multiple times per week, regular outreach and case management services available, service referrals, as well as dedicated meeting space on site so residents can meet with case management and social workers. Additionally, weekly showers are brought to the location from the Downtown Streets team, and several other quality of life amenities are available. The service support area allows for the continuing work of community-based organizations and other nonprofits to identify permanent paths to housing. Currently, there's 36 individuals living within the SSA. 23 of those residents have been assigned to case management. 11 of the participants, prior residents of the SSA, have been successfully housed. The implementation and utilization of the service support area is a successful endeavor, and it continues to showcase the success through engagement in case management, as well as individuals continuing to transition to more supportive housing. I'd also like to offer that the SSA and the services provided remain sought after. Individuals experiencing homelessness, continue to seek services, and we currently have a 16-person waiting list to get into the community. And the SSA is supported by multiple city departments as well as community partners for the ongoing commitment to transition people into more permanent housing. Of course, track 3 of these coordinated efforts is leveraging new housing funds to create additional permanent and supportive housing. It was noted that the Kerner location was selected as a project home key site in the first round of the program. And while there's not a project home key 2.0, there is a project in Larkspur between the County of Marin and the City of Larkspur that will become a project home key site on South Alicio Drive. That will be a 43-unit permanent supportive housing facility for single adults. Also of note, the City of San Rafael released a notice of funding availability for the next round of affordable housing funding through the Affordable Housing Trust, and those responses are due on the 23rd. Some additional updates that are, I think, important to share. As of December 1st, the City of San Rafael filled its vacant homeless program manager. Mark is on the screen here. We're super happy to have Mark on board. And I think his joining the organization highlights a continuing commitment to continuing to work towards ending homelessness in San Rafael with the 2013 mental health liaison appointment and the position of the homeless program manager, which came about in 2016. It just further highlights our commitment to working to end homelessness in the City of San Rafael. A couple of more updates, if you'll indulge me. The County of Marin has recently stood up a data dashboard, which has some really interesting information. It illustrates the impact of the coordinated entry system. The Marin County Board of Supervisors at their meeting last week set aside $500,000 in matching funds to assist with support on homeless encampment strategies. And of course, the City of San Rafael continues to advocate for additional supportive housing at the county level. I think the success of our support service area is an indicator that this could be successful on county property as well. Housing First has been a primary approach in Marin County to house the homeless population since 2016, 2017. And the city is currently working with Marin County Board of Supervisors to convene a homelessness summit in the spring of 2022. Hope maybe the mayor might comment on that after our presentation. Lastly, staff would like to pass along the most recent update from Opening Doors, which sends out a monthly update on the impacts of Marin's coordinated entry system. Among the information in the most recent report, there are 3 notable updates on chronic homelessness, veteran homelessness, and family homelessness. And if you'll allow me to share, chronic homelessness since October 1st of 2017, as I previously mentioned, 427 people have been housed who were previously experiencing chronic homelessness. 94% of those are still housed. Veteran homelessness since October 1st of 2017, 59 homeless veterans were housed. And in November of this year, 5 more veterans were moved into housing. And then family homelessness since June of 2020, 88 homeless families have been housed. And in November, 5 additional families were housed. I highlight these areas of chronic homelessness, veteran homelessness, and family homelessness because the work done to transition these individuals into more permanent supportive housing is noteworthy, and it should be celebrated as we continue working hard. With that, I will turn it back to Mark, who will present briefly on the status of our ERF grant, or Encampment Resolution Funding Grant.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much. The city is truly doing some amazing work. The report the Chief just gave is really the information that allows us to be competitive for this emergency resolution funding grant. They ask a lot of questions in the grant that we are so able to answer in such an affirmative way of the great work that we're doing. There's a standard that HUD adheres to and is not uncommon across the nation in terms of carrying caseloads. What caseloads actually should be in intensive case management, so you can really focus on working with the homeless population as we guide them towards taking whatever the next step is for them into housing. And that caseload is about a ratio of one case manager, or one housing case manager to about 17 folks. And so right now we have, through the efforts of the city of San Rafael, we have one case manager who's dedicated to about 17 folks at the SSA. And this encampment resolution funding that we're applying for is really broken down to its basic. We're applying for 2 staff positions. One is going to be another housing case manager, which will allow us to focus on another 17 folks intensively. And also we are putting in a request for somebody who's going to focus on bridging the mental health, the mental wellness needs of the folks into Marin County's behavioral health and recovery services. Because the chief mentioned that there's a fantastic rate of folks getting into housing. I think it was 94% are still housed. And those are folks who are getting support, and folks that are also moving into housing or having the conversation about getting into housing also need that support for mental wellness. And so that's why we're applying for both a housing case manager and somebody, what we're calling a mental health coordinator, to bridge those services as well. I think we stand a very good chance of receiving this funding because we can write so strongly to all the great work that we're doing, and this grant will serve to augment all the great work that we're doing. So we are applying for roughly, this can change plus minus, for about $450,000, which the majority of that is staffing and building in a little bit of supplies and support, and maybe even some workforce development that we might write into that as well. So that grant is due December 31st, and we are well on our way to, of course, meet that deadline. And couldn't have done it without the great support of the team.
With that, Mayor Kate, staff will submit that report for your consideration. And if you have any questions, we're available to address them.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Spiller. And again, welcome, Mark. I think you've been here 2 weeks now, maybe 2 weeks, so definitely hit the ground running. Glad to have you here. And so as this is a report, I'll open it up to my colleagues and I'll take your comments. If you have any questions, of course, ask those, but let's take comments up front as well before we go to the public, and I'll start with the Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I have 2 questions, but I must start with an overarching comment of someone who's watched this issue unfold over the last many years, and to really comment on the integrity, ingenuity, and compassion of our staff. The current chief, as well as his predecessor, and Mark, as well as his predecessor, in creating these solutions, in many cases out of thin air, and because there were people on our streets, residents of our city who needed our help. And I on behalf of everyone in the community, thank you for all of the effort that has gone into addressing these very urgent problems on our streets. So that's my opening comment, but now I want to drill down to the future a little bit. On the service support area, what do we envision happening in 2022? Is this going to be a permanent fixture in our city? And if not, what is as many specifics as you have for the transitioning to the termination of the area?
Great question. So the support service area is intended to be temporary, and it's not intended to last in perpetuity. So we continue to work with regional partners and identify other solutions. We continue to focus on transitioning those individuals into more permanent housing while we still have a waiting list. We're focused on all possibilities in terms of mitigating the issue of homelessness. So to give you a date, unless the city manager wants to jump in and give you a date, we are committed to doing this into 2022, potentially into the spring, but there's a lot of possibility in terms of maybe relocating it to another location, partnering with the county or another organization to find an alternate location. But we're committed to the services that are being developed, as well as offering the site, which has security and these other amenities that we mentioned.
And Vice Mayor, the only thing I'd add to that is that the list of the home key sites and the sites that the city contributed through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is a really big part of that plan. So we know we have sites coming online in the spring, and then we have some other sites coming online more in the summer of the different projects that Chief Spiller reviewed. So our plan is to make sure that people get housed, move into these projects that are coming online, and not be permanently at the service support area, but it's intended to be a short-term temporary solution because that's where people were already living. So this allowed us to have much more focused services and a more intentional pipeline to those other projects that the chief mentioned.
Sounds good. So in other words, by next summer, our hope is that the current residents of the service support area are receiving services at some other location or through some other program.
Yeah,
or transitioned into more permanent supportive housing. Yeah. I think that's the home run for us. Yeah.
Ideally. Yeah, ideally. Okay. All right. That sounds great. A related question about the funding application, the grant application for case manager funding. $450,000 is a lot. Sounds like a lot of staff time. And I'm wondering, are we building a permanent bureaucracy to address our residents experiencing homelessness?
So this funding is only 2 years. It's 2 years of funding. So these two positions, by design of this particular funding source, this funding source would come to an end because the funding source is actually an encampment resolution funding source. So it's meant to come to a conclusion.
So these two are related in that this funding will help my first question come to fruition.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. Great. Okay. Now my final question is about our partners. I hear a productive descriptions of a productive partnership with the County of Marin. I'm also aware that other cities in Marin are struggling with the same sorts of issues that we are. And the description of there being a summit to perhaps discuss ways that these could be consolidated. Is that the vision? Is there anything that we can do to assist in having more established regional government take over some of these issues?
Yeah, so I'll jump in. I think, a lot of the success comes from relationships, and we've got, I think San Rafael has really demonstrated a significant amount of leadership in this area. And I think we've influenced our agency partners throughout the county. And I think continuing to have these conversations, continuing to push for innovative solutions creates that opportunity. And, as we talk about different sites, as we talk about, different funding strategies and opportunities toward getting the individuals who are experiencing homelessness into more permanent and supportive housing, I think will continue to be successful. So yeah, I think as we talk to our county partners, we try to influence and we try to move that needle, but it's a continuing effort. And I think an effort that you'll see at a lot of different levels throughout different levels of city staff, electeds, the city manager and his peers, and other examples.
Well, thank you for a great report, and more importantly, for a multi-year great program.
Thank you.
Thank you. And before I go to Councilmember Kurtz, I just wanted to actually add on to Chief Spiller's answer regarding working together, the collaborations with the other jurisdictions and with the county. As the chief mentioned, Housing First has been the approach here where you get people housed and you wrap them with services, and we've had great success. He gave you the data. People are staying housed, so we all agree with Housing First. And it's continuing to work with the county to add other tools to their toolbox, which an interim shelter, which you could say the support service area, it is such a temporary solution. And we'd all rather have something that is an interim shelter that really is better. It's just better. And that can be tiny homes. It could be an SSA on county property where there might be more room or it's closer to other services. And so our hope is at the summit, we can have that conversation with the county, with the cities, and say, hey, as part of Housing First, how can we have this interim shelter tool added into the toolbox? And I think there's a real appetite from the cities to do that. And we all went with the county. Myself, city staff, folks from Sausalito and Novato, and went and visited Los Gilicos, which is a tiny home village up in Sonoma. And it was interesting, and county staff was with us. And so I think that's, as you look at 2022, to me, that's really, it'd be great to go towards that. We have found through the 65% of the folks under case management, they're that much closer to getting housed. So having an interim shelter place where people can continue to get case management and have shelter that is far, far better than tents under a freeway. So I just wanted to expand that a little bit. That's really when you ask about how we're working together. And I have more to, when I get to the comment, I actually have a few more, but let me turn it over to Councilmember Kurtz. Any questions? And we'll take your comments right now as well.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Mark, for the report. It's really great to have you on board and to bring your experience to us. One question I have, which is very specific in terms of like timing to place people into housing. I know people have asked me a number of times, like, we know we have housing available or spaces available. Why isn't it happening faster? And I mean, I know from my experience working with the work that we're doing in the city, as well as my prior experience with working in the homeless community, but maybe from your experience, you can share a little bit from your understanding, like why doesn't it just happen? We have somebody who's homeless and we have a home or we have a space. Why does that just work?
I thank you for the question. And I wish there was one answer to that. What you have is you have folks who have been on the street homeless, maybe for a short period of time, maybe for a long period of time. And everybody starts at a different place. And it takes a while for folks who've especially been on the streets for a long period of time. You know, that's traumatic. And what builds up in them is a mistrust, and you know, they've maybe been burned several times as they're trying to get housing. So it just takes a long process. And developing relationships with them, with the case manager, and all the different pieces that have to come together in terms of getting folks document ready. Even though we have the case management, the housing case management that will shepherd somebody through the process, there's appointments that need to be made. And sometimes it will take 3 or 4 months with one person to get them to a very first appointment. There will be broken appointments. So there's really not any one answer why it takes so much time, other than you have folks that are homeless. It's traumatic. And to kind of work their way through a system takes a while. I mean, in the best of circumstances for some folks who maybe had to go through this process to get the housing vouchers, even for us that have access to the phone and have access to everything you need to make an appointment, it can be hard for us. So take that into somebody whose environment, sometimes their biggest concern is just getting up and getting to the next place safely, and then worrying about all their belongings. So I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but there's so many different pieces and parts of this process, and that's why it takes a long time. The simple process of getting to the voucher, if everything went perfectly and you could have somebody ready to participate at their highest level, it wouldn't take that long. But we're not dealing with that particular situation. So it's a very broad answer to a very broad array of issues.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's from my experience. And I started working with the Marin homeless community in 2009 as part of the Marin Organizing Committee REST program. And that was 13 years ago. And then the number of all the cities started getting involved. About 3 or 4 years later, that REST program, which is the rotating emergency shelter team, we provided food and for a place to sleep for one night. It was not what we have today. Mm-hmm. And it started as a 1-year program, then it was 3 years, and then it was 10 years. And we would comment, we're seeing the same people year after year after year. And what was missing in what we were doing and what's starting really working now is that case management piece, because everyone had an individual story and an individual situation that to be worked on. I want to make sure that the community understands tonight's report and update is not just a pat on the back of what has happened in the work that we're doing, but it's really to say that we need to recognize that we're on a path and there's still more work to be done. And we know that. And we need to continue to have a level of investment in this work, because these are residents of San Rafael who are facing homelessness. It's not new. Our solutions are not perfect, But we're working, as Vice Mayor Bushy said, we're working to lead with compassion and care. When we started the SSA, the service support area, there was a question like, well, what do we do? What's needed? What are the first things that are needed? And we said, well, we need to have bathroom facilities. We need to have hand washing stations. We need to have security. And then it was, we need to have a table. We need to have electricity. So over time, we've talked about what needs to happen in the SSA to maintain a level of care right now, and while we're working with our community partners. One more question. I've been asked about, and Mark, you may not have the answer to this one because it's a little bit before, why did we choose this area for the SSA? And maybe the chief could answer that, or the city manager might be able, because there was thought about where the SSA should be.
So I think that's a great question. We had a dynamic of a sprawl of encampments throughout the area of the viaduct, from the lot between 2nd and 3rd, between 3rd and 4th, between 4th and 5th, between 5th and Mission, and these encampments, which were spread out, were created calls for service both from police perspective, the fire perspective, and we were starting to realize this public health and safety concern. And as we started to brainstorm these solutions, we started to innovate toward creating real solutions and real services for the residents in this area that are experiencing homelessness. We talked about creating a space where we could provide these services, provide some level of security, which allows the residents within the area their dignity and to have these amenities. The city provided tents and cots and all of these things that you've talked about. But what we were able to do is consolidate it into one area where we were able to more effectively work with the residents who are on a path to more permanent or supportive housing. Those that, the fact that we're all in one area makes case management a little bit easier. It makes the work of our community-based organizations and our nonprofits a little more accessible. And in our work with Caltrans, throughout the state, Caltrans identifies these problems, manages calls for service, and starts to move individuals out of state property. So we got into this collaboration, this partnership with Caltrans, and identified this lot and consolidated the residents. And by the vast majority of residents were excited about the move, excited about the amenities, excited about a clean, warm sleeping bag, a brand new tent, and those types of things. So it kind of created a win-win by virtue of the dynamic that existed without a significant geographical move.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. No, I appreciate that, because some people don't understand why we're there. It's not easy to set up a system like this. And I know our strategies have evolved over the last couple of months as we're continuing to learn. And one of the areas that we look at, we look at all sorts of communities, whether it's Santa Rosa, whether it's San Francisco, it's Oakland. Every community is trying to figure out the magic answer. And the reality is there isn't a magic answer. The areas that are having more success than others are where there's strong partnership with the county, with the partners servicing, the case management, the work, the focus on housing. So I feel like we're on that right track, and I'm looking forward to the next report. Hopefully not in 6 months, maybe sooner. I think it is one of those things we're going to be staying on top of, and we're not going to solve homelessness. That's not where we're going to develop a strategy to address homelessness. We're definitely not naive enough to think that we can solve homelessness. So our work is really to develop that strategy so that when somebody is faced with being homeless, is we can make sure that they are going to be in a safe, secure, and get the supports they need to be able to function and hopefully get to housing.
And if I may add one thing, we talk about the partnerships, and as I write this funding proposal, I talk a lot about partnerships. And we also can't forget about the SSA has made the homeless community more accessible to us as service providers, but it's also made us more accessible to our homeless community. And this is working because we're in partnership with our homeless community. Mm-hmm. And that's what the SSA is. It's a partnership. So I talk about that in the proposal. That's what's going on. It's a two-way street on this one, and that's very, very heartening.
No, I appreciate that. And I remember when we first started this and we had the security, and I think one of the major factors was having the security around the SSA. And we heard comments from the residents saying it was one of the first times they felt safe, because they could actually get a good night's sleep and not feel like their belongings were going to get stolen, or, so just having that security was an important factor before you could even think about anything else. You need to feel secure and safe. So that's it. A lot of comments, a lot of questions. Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the work.
No, thank you. No, I appreciate the questions and the comments. I actually, I think Ken Shapiro is around, and I would love to bring him on screen just to further talk about, I know, Mark, you had talked about in general why it takes folks time to be housed. Hi, Ken. Sorry, I didn't tell you. I was going to ask you, but you have been working on the issue from the county, and I apologize because I actually don't know your title. Hi, Gary. And so maybe you could just say a few words and really about the Marin system specifically.
Sure. I'm Ken Shapiro, the COO and Assistant Director for the Department of Health and Human Services, formerly the Whole Person Care and Homelessness Director, but I'm happy to introduce Gary Naja-Reese, who's recently joined the county and now holds that title. Welcome, Gary. One of the questions Councilmember Kurtz asked was about the time it takes to house people. And, we at the county have we've been on a journey for the past 5 years where we really have focused on housing first and the creation of permanent supportive housing units. And we've been laser focused on that because ultimately the solution to homelessness is a house. And it really is that simple. So that has been the focus of our system overall. We've doubled the stock of permanent supportive housing. We're approaching 650 units of permanent supportive housing. And we have San Rafael to thank in large part for that. The contribution toward the Home Key site is a big part of that. And there's a ton of units in the pipeline. Let me back up just a moment. We've had a lot of our success by using the vouchers that the chief spoke about. The dedicated vouchers with the Marin Housing Authority have been invaluable. They're very complex tools. They're federal tools. Once you have it, it is the golden ticket. It will allow the holder of the voucher to port with it where they wish. It allows them to hold it in perpetuity, and they're only required to pay 30% of their income in rent, and that's capped. Those are golden. And so to get your hands on one of them is a very complex process, as Mark was describing. For you or I, who are well organized, who have our medications under control, have a place to store our medications, have a place to sleep every night, are not experiencing day-to-day trauma, it's very difficult to find your birth certificate, to get your social security card and make it through a background investigation. But imagine all of that if you didn't have all those other basic needs being met on a day-to-day basis. And then it goes through layers of bureaucracy. It goes through the Marin Housing Authority and then ultimately all the way up to the federal government and the Housing and Urban Development Department at the federal level. It takes months to get a voucher in the best of circumstances. And typically we're not operating in the best of circumstances. So that's one big component of it. And we've relied on those, and as I said, we use those in scattered sites because, as you know, in Marin, we have not been we haven't developed a lot of low-income housing, and that's been something that city councils are wrestling with today. And I know it's a big topic that you deal with, Mayor Kate. So what we've relied on is finding willing landlords, and I'd say San Rafael has been the leader in helping us to recruit landlords to work with us, to allow us to take these vouchers and place them into scattered site apartments. That's a slow, lengthy, difficult process. And it's not ultimately going to solve homelessness. Councilmember Kurtz, I appreciate everything you said. And I don't think we're naive, but we do think we can end chronic homelessness, which means that we could make it so that no one in Marin experiences homelessness for more than a year, and that we get to what's called functional zero. So that is our goal. And we don't believe that's achievable if we continue to rely on willing landlords and scattered site apartments. The only way we'll achieve that is if we develop housing. So there's a lot in the pipeline, and it takes a while. We haven't brought a lot online yet, but as you heard tonight, the 32 units in San Rafael, Mill Street 2.0, will be highly supportive units. They'll come online not too long. We are in active construction on the 18 units that we acquired through Home Key 1.0 in Corte Madera. And right now we're on schedule with construction. The upcoming rain won't help, but we do think we'll finish that construction project as soon as late March, early April. That'll be 18 more units. We have the units at 3301 Kerner. And the chief mentioned the site that we've applied for in Larkspur. Most people think of it as Greenbrae on South Alicio Drive. We expect to hear back from the state any day about that application. And if we're successful there, that'll get us 43 more units of very highly permanent supportive housing in Larkspur. So that's, I think, a little bit of why it takes so long. We really focused on this approach starting in 2017, and we're just now starting to get a lot of these units coming online that we've laid the groundwork for over these past 4 or 5 years. I don't know, Gary's worked in this world a long time as well, so he may have something to add.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Thank you. First, to the mayor and to the entire council, to the police department, Lynn, and others who are on the ground. Mark, welcome to the position. San Rafael has truly been a leader in this effort. And at the county, we're very proud to be partnering with the folks in our county seats community to demonstrate that strategies like Housing First really can make a significant difference. And, it's really been the shift of priorities, the shift of funding, the shift of organization attention to Housing First policies that have led to the incredible successes since 2016. And as Councilmember Kurtz was saying, the issue is complex. It is difficult. There is no simple solution. And we cannot afford every option and every strategy that is out there. We would love to see everyone sheltered, receiving intensive case management and moving into permanent supportive housing, but there are only a limited number of dollars in the system. And through the work of the county, through the excellent work in San Rafael and the successes you have all had, additional dollars during the pandemic have been able to be leveraged that have made an incredible difference. Individuals in the service support area, in encampments, and I don't want to forget that there are many, many unhoused folks that are not in our encampments and in our service support areas who are still part of this system, who still need the care and support and attention. Although encampments can be incredibly visible for the community and sometimes heartbreaking to see as we exist in our communities. We need to remember that there is a larger world of unhoused folks out there. Our mission, along with San Rafael's, has been to serve all of them, to prioritize folks who are most vulnerable, and to ensure that the solutions that we provide to individuals are permanent, not temporary or inadequate fixes. And it's been incredible to see the number of folks moving into permanent supportive housing, and critical to point out that intensive case management does not stop when they get into housing. It continues because we want to be sure that folks who are housed remain housed. So I hope that other communities can look towards the incredible trust that San Rafael has built with the residents in the service support area and across the city as a whole. And for all of us to remember that, these are our residents. I live in San Rafael. I'm in the West End. I've been a resident for many years. I'm a resident, and so are the folks in the service support area. So are the other unhoused folks in our community. They deserve to stay in the communities they've grown up in and have chosen to live in. And the incredible work that you've all done with landlords, housing supports, police, staffing, everything imaginable has created a recipe for success. And we hope that you will continue to receive the support from the public and others to continue that success.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you, Ken. Our county partners are so important, and I'm glad that you were able both to jump on and kind of fill out the conversation and the narrative. And San Rafael, we're 100% behind the idea of eliminating chronic homelessness. That is a goal that we can all aspire to. And I mean, when I walk down 4th Street, or if I see the SSA, as good as that interim shelter, the temporary situation is, it's not good enough. I mean, as we've all been talking about, no one should be without shelter. No one should be on the streets and not have the opportunity to have a roof over their heads. And I can't underscore that enough. And as Councilmember Kurtz said, I think we celebrate our successes because they're hard to come by, but I don't think we ever pat ourselves on the back and say we're done. We just strive harder. And I know from having worked with Ken for years, and Gary, I look forward to working with you, we'll continue with that ethos. We got to do better. I mean, we got to keep doing better. We got to keep doing better in San Rafael. We got to keep doing better in the county. We got to keep doing better in the state and the federal dollars. And I do want to give a shout out to Mike McGuire, who has been helpful in terms of helping our community access state dollars. We are in deep conversation with him. We're all hopeful that we'll continue to have these tools to get folks into housing. Case management's a big part of it. That is why the city has used our American Rescue Plan Act dollars to help fund that. And we rely 100% on the county. You guys, as you already talked about, you have Health and Human Services, Marin Housing Authority. We don't have either of those departments. And what we do have is, while we might have visible encampments, we understand the underlying support we give to housing projects that come to San Rafael. We have continued to do that. We gave $1.4 million to Homeward Bound. We've given to Home Key 1.0. We've given money to Homeward Bound for Mill Street 2.0. So we continue to show up where we can, and we know, as Councilmember Kurtz said, it has to be in collaboration. So I appreciate all the comments. I do want to hear from the public, see if there are any additional comments before we accept this report. Ken, Gary, you're welcome to stay on or turn your video off, however it feels comfortable to you, and we will turn it over to the public.
Thank you. To comment on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature. And if commenting by phone, please press *9. Once you hear a notification that the host is inviting you to speak, please press *6 to unmute yourself. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to provide public comment, and then will be muted once time has elapsed. I do see a couple of hands raised. We're ready for you.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that. Okay, yeah. Hi, this is Jason Saris. I want to touch on the fact about the 18 people that are on the waiting list and the other homeless that are now subject to arrest because of the ordinances that you passed on the same day you started the camp. These people now are subject to arrest with misdemeanors, and since they can't sleep anywhere like in a garage or Boyd Park, myself and a few advocates plan on starting a overflow camp on public property that is protected by Martin versus Boise. And we look forward to working with you in collaboration with this. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Damian Edwards. I'm a housing case manager for the Downtown Streets team, and SSA is 90% of my clients that are there. So I just want to go over the numbers. Out of the 17 clients, I have 11 that are actively working on housing applications. 6 of them have been submitted. Most of those will come in early January. I'm there almost on a daily basis. I use the modular that's there on the property to sit with clients. I'm usually there 5-6 hours. I sit with the clients. We work on their CalFresh, their Medi-Cal, their GR, employment. I also do referrals for people that I believe need behavioral health resources. I've had 4 referrals in. 2 are actively receiving services. Do the whole person care, coordinated entry. We work on the IDs as well. Some of the problem is that property management, if somebody applies to the property management and they are denied, that property management might oversee 6 or 7 different places. With housing comes credit history, rental history, background check. These people that have been out there, which about 7 of them that are SSA, I went to school with. And I've known a lot of people in the streets for a long time from working at another nonprofit. It's hard. It's rough. We depend on other entities to do their part. It's hard to get into Social Security. It's hard to get a birth certificate out of state. There's many barriers. I've been there 90 days and I've already got 6 applications in. I'm on the street on a daily basis and I will continue to do so. So I just want to go ahead and give everybody some numbers, and thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members, for allowing me to share.
Damian, thank you so much for calling in. I think it is fantastic to hear those numbers, and we appreciate all that you're doing for the residents. Thank you.
Hi, this is Kristen Vandeveer. Again, I'm sorry I spoke before. This is my first time doing this. As I stated before, I'm the founder of the nonprofit Meditation Without Borders that recently started an ongoing project at the service support area. My nonprofit brings meditation to people in need. So I work with a lot of people who work with disadvantaged communities. They do what they do because they have a genuine concern for the people they serve. And I just want to offer that Officer Lynn Murphy is one of these people. I worked for a number of weeks with Lynn, both with teaching meditation and coordinating on 2 separate drives for warm clothing, rain gear, tents, grocery store gift cards, and holiday cards from young children from a local school. I witnessed her repeatedly, including today, on the ground, connecting individually with each resident, really listening to their issues, and then I saw her act swiftly to address those needs. It's a very difficult issue, and I'm sure Lynn would be happy to have access to permanent housing for all the residents of the Service Support Center. But what I see is someone doing the best with what she's been made available, and she's helped create a better solution for the residents than what they were experiencing before. In summary, I believe Lynn and the others on the ground, like Damian, who just spoke, are doing everything they can, and I would encourage providing her and the others working with the service support area with more resources and support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristen. And I know that you organized a Thanksgiving Day event, so thank you for showing up for our residents in that way.
Hi there, this is Nick Morris, Executive Director with the Street Chaplaincy. Thank you, Mayor Kate and council members. I just wanted to share with you some of our observations. We are spending many hours in the service support area. We have a Friday coffee there. We visit community members there and provide spiritual support. And as a member of Whole Person Care, we work with Lynn to try to get people into housing. It is a step in the right direction. It seems like all the pieces are coming together. There's better communication and collaboration between agencies, other nonprofits, city and county government. So we're encouraged by that. And there are some areas of improvement that I would like to point out based on our experience of interfacing with folks there. And one of those is during extreme weather events. I was there during the first bomb cyclone, and people were soaked, their tents, their possessions. And because there's no running water there, we went out and we bought cases of water and brought them there. People needed water. And they also were having a hard time sourcing food because there was so much flooding and a lot of stores were closed down. In fact, one of the security guard who was there at the time actually bought everyone pizza out of pocket. And so, I think we know when these things are coming, and hopefully we can better prepare to protect folks in the encampments during that time. And Mayor Kate, I applaud your comments around the need for interim shelter. So important. I think this is a step in the right direction, and I think we can do better with tiny homes and in a better place for folks to.
Thank you, Nick. It's so interesting to hear all these different groups that come in and helping to support the folks in the service support area. And after we receive public comment, I will ask Ken Shapiro to just comment on the extreme weather protocol, because that is a county one. So after public comment, we'll do that.
Hi, everyone. This is Karen Strolia. I'm the Senior Director for Downtown Streets team, and I couldn't help but chime in and kind of share some of the work that we've been doing in San Rafael. You heard Damien speak earlier today about his efforts in the SSA with his housing case management. But I also wanted to acknowledge and kind of give a nod to what Gary mentioned, in that there are other individuals outside of the SSA who also need support and service. My outreach team is going into different parts of San Rafael 10 to 15 hours a week to engage with people who are not in the SSA. I know it was mentioned from Chief Spiller that our showers are also being hosted at the SSA. We're really excited to be there every Monday night, and we're looking to expand that opportunity. Our downtown work experience program is within the SSA 1 day a week on top of their downtown and canal cleaning efforts. And they're really, the goal is to do that peer-to-peer outreach, but also kind of help offset the cost of other cleanup commitments that are happening with the city. We've partnered with different agencies throughout the county, like the Humane Society, to bring fur baby care to people who have animals there. We've partnered with the county to bring vaccinations and COVID testing. Chief Speller mentioned the DST is in San Rafael a lot, and he's not kidding. We are there daily, as you've heard. I did want to just give a nod to Councilmember Kurtz when she said that we won't solve homelessness. And I'm not convinced, because I'm a diehard, compassionate human who's just determined to put myself out of a job. But what I do see on a daily basis is that we are ending the experience of homelessness one individual at a time on a very regular basis. And so we're grateful for the opportunity to work with this crew especially. And thank you for the time.
Thank you. And I really do appreciate the Downtown Streets team, folks calling in. They have been integral partners, both from case management and early partners for the mobile showers. So they've been doing that work for years.
Thank you. I want to point out that two of the recent callers run nonprofits. Mistrolia's group has received an inordinate amount of money from the county and from San Rafael to provide very meager services. The showers at the quote unquote SSA, nice euphemism for an internment camp under a freeway with no bathrooms. There's a few porta potties. There's no running water. There's been no electricity. This is underneath an incredibly noisy freeway overpass. And in between four major intersections, it's a majority Black and Latino camp. And what you're hearing and what you're seeing on the city council, whether it's Ms. Vandeveer with her nonprofit or Ms. Strolia with hers, are white people whitewashing what's been going on at this camp. And that is unacceptable. And they should be ashamed of themselves. I speak as someone who cared for a great number of unhoused people in an actual clinical setting at UCSF. And I can tell you that when I was there today, despite the meditation classes, no one had a proper N95 or K94 mask. The place was in ruins because of the recent storms, and there's another storm coming in tomorrow. If you see the video that residents themselves took of the just sheets of toxic water pouring down on their tents, 3 inches of water in a tent. I mean, it is absolutely obscene to have these people, praise you for choosing this site. You could be doing all of these things at a site that is more humane. And frankly, for the amount of money that you're going to be sued for abusing these people, you should have just gotten them room key rooms. It would have been cheaper in the end.
Hi. So I was at the site today, and one of the things I passed out were masks, which I pass out every week when I'm there. And I would like to say that I'd like to point out that those masks are often lost or used and then thrown out and things like that. I think it is important to keep in mind that it is not, the city is not God, the county is not God. No one from the city or county created that situation, and they are trying hard to fix it. Certainly I understand that it is an upsetting situation for a lot of people. I think spewing vitriol at people who are trying to fix it is misplaced. I applaud the efforts of the city. I realize that they are imperfect. I've been at that camp a number of times. I hope it does get better quickly. But I also want to point out that I made a suggestion to some of the folks there that they move their tents into the middle away from the falling water. And some of them sort of shrugged off that suggestion. So there may be reasons for that, but again, the city and the county cannot fix every single problem. One of the reasons why the problems remain as they are is because people are being allowed some agency to make their own decisions, whether those decisions are helpful to themselves or not. So I applaud what you're doing and keep going. Thank you.
Thank you for passing out masks. We all need to be wearing them more, so thank you for that.
I see no other hands raised, so I'm just going to give another reminder. If you're calling in, you can press *9 to raise your hand. I see no further public comment.
Thank you. I will close the public comment and bring it back. And thank you again to Ken and Gary for jumping into this Zoom. That is, I think, a small silver lining to the fact that we are on Zoom. But if you could speak to the severe weather event protocol, that would be helpful.
Sure. And I don't believe I have access to drop a link into the chat, so I'll read a web address for folks, because we do have these posted to the Marin Health and Human Services website. It's marinhhs.org/emergency-information is where we post the severe weather criteria. So as Nick mentioned, we had the atmospheric river in October, and after that, we gathered together with the Office of Emergency Services as well as our public health officers and revised our criteria. So we did update our criteria recently. They've grown in the last few years since I've been here, as climate change is with us and real. And so we didn't have excessive heat events in Marin the way that we do now. And we didn't have to, nobody knew what AQI meant 3 years ago, I don't think, but everybody knows exactly what it means. They even know what the dangerous levels are. So this used to be 2 bullets. It's now, I think, 8 bullets, the criteria under which we activate our severe weather shelter. So we take the view, I think, as the last caller mentioned, none of us are God, and we all wish we had more resources, and we have to make god-awful decisions, frankly, about how to allocate resources. And so we take the view of activating the severe weather shelter in instances where there's the potential for loss of life. We really take the view from the lens of public health. Are people likely to freeze, to have hypothermia, to have severe events and visit the hospital because of the heat? And so it feels terrible as a public servant to lay out the criteria and the conditions under which we don't activate. So I can read off the criteria for you if you'd like that, Mayor, for the ones that are relevant for the winter time. So if there's a forecasted rainfall for at least 72 hours with greater than 1 inch of rain per day average over those at least 72 hours. So that would be 3 days of 1 inch of rain per day on average. If there are flash flood watches or warnings, we'll do a partial activation and we'll do outreach specifically to areas where people are in danger of having their camp overrun by water or rising creeks. If the forecasted temperatures will drop below an average nighttime low of 38 degrees and conditions are projected for a minimum of 3 days, or forecast temperatures are to drop below an average nighttime low of 45 for 2 consecutive days, coupled with hazardous conditions such as greater than 1 inch of rain, flash flood watches or warning, wind chills, or extreme temperature fluctuations. Forecast temperatures to drop below an average nighttime low of 40 degrees with hazardous conditions, for example, greater than 1 inch of rain. And those are the winter criteria that we use. We have been looking, we spoke with your staff today, along with Homeward Bound, who's our contractor provider for severe weather. Looking at the forecast coming up, there's going to be rain for a very long time, but right now we don't meet the criteria for any of these activations. So at the moment, we're not announcing an activation. The forecasts have been very, very poor out of the National Weather Service. And I'm not blaming the National Weather Service. I think the weather has been very difficult to predict. We're going to be keeping a really close eye on it as we go through the next 2 weeks. And we're in daily contact with NWS through our Emergency Operations Center. And if the forecast shifts, we would adjust accordingly.
Thank you, Ken. And I appreciate you reading that through, because I think we all start to wonder what the criteria is. And it's very clear. And as you said in the beginning, it is to mitigate the extreme effects of loss of life. And that is why what I took away was lots of rain and really cold was when it gets activated. And appreciate the county stepping in those situations. So thank you so much. We have already heard comments from the Vice Mayor and from the council member. So before I ask for a motion, I also want to thank Mark. Welcome again, and Chief Spiller. And again, working in partnership with Gary and Kent, staff at the county, and who aren't on the screen, but working with our county supervisors, with Supervisor Damon Connolly and Supervisor Katie Rice. I work with them closely. And I do think, and we can work together and still push back and not always agree. And I do think having a support service area or interim shelter in a place that is not located under a freeway could be a possible tool, which we'll talk about when we have a summit and we bring all the different providers and agencies that are working on this issue together, and to have a conversation and figure out, with those precious resources, would we peel some of them off away from permanent supportive housing, which we get. Housing is the ultimate objective, but to maybe provide additional support to get people onto the path. So again, thank you all. We're not going to give up. Luckily, this is a really hardy and resilient group, and I know that because we've been in conversation for years, and we're going to stay in conversation and addressing the issues. So with that, I would accept a motion to accept the report.
I move that we accept the report.
I'll second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Oh, sorry, City Clerk, we got there really fast. Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye. That motion carries 3-0. Again, thank you all for all of your hard work. And again, stay tuned. We will keep with the updates. So thank you so much. Okay. The next item we have is ministerial review of 2-unit residential developments and urban lot splits pursuant to Senate Bill 9. And I see Director Giudice has joined us. And I think we have a new face as well on our screen, but I will hand it over to the director. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Kate. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Jeff Valentine. Jeff joined us as a senior planner from the city of El Cerrito. He started December 1st and immediately got working on the SB 9 legislation and working with our city attorney and our planning manager. So with that, I'll go ahead and let Jeff go ahead and begin his report. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. My name is Jeff Valentine, and I'm a recently hired senior planner with the city. And I'll provide a presentation on Senate Bill 9, known as the California Home Act. This legislation will go into effect on January 1st, 2022. And my presentation will provide a summary of the requirements of SB 9, as well as recommended next steps for implementing this bill. So, start off, this bill consists of 2 primary components. One requires ministerial approval of 2 primary houses on a single family residential parcel. And the other requires ministerial approval of what's called an urban lot split. And this is a one-time subdivision of an existing single family residential parcel into 2 parcels. And so all single family residential zone parcels are affected by SB 9 except for, sorry. Oh, getting a little mixed up. Okay. So sorry. So the city will impose existing objective development standards as long as they do not preclude the construction of 2 units of at least 800 square feet on a parcel. The city can only deny an SB 9 application if projects do not meet objective standards or if there are specific adverse impacts on public health and safety. In addition, there are specific restrictions on how the city may regulate these applications that I'll summarize later. So which parcels are affected by SB 9? So basically all single family residential zone parcels within an urbanized areas except these 3 things. So historic properties and historic districts, properties where the Ellis Act was used to evict tenants in the last 15 years, as well as environmentally sensitive areas, environmentally hazard areas. In addition, demolition is generally not permitted for rental units and deed restricted rental units. So in terms of current law, right now, somebody could develop 3 units on a single family parcel. They could develop a primary dwelling unit, accessory dwelling unit, as well as a junior ADU. So with SB 9 for an application for 2-unit development that does not include an urban lot split, somebody could do 2 primary dwelling units on that lot. And if they had, say, an existing single family home, they could add an additional primary dwelling unit. However, what's a bit unclear in the legislation is how many ADUs or junior ADUs someone could be allowed in this scenario. And HCD will hopefully be providing us some additional guidance on this very, very soon. In terms of what can be built on an urban lot split application, so homeowners can build 2 homes on each of the 2 new lots, allowing for a total of 4 units. And yeah, for existing units, new homes can be added to result in a maximum of 4 potential units. And in terms of the development standards, so for urban lot splits, the minimum lot size is 1,200 square feet. And the smaller of the proposed lot must be at least 40% of the area of the existing lot. And for setbacks, there is a requirement that the city implement a setback of 4 feet for both rear and side setbacks. And then, however, if it's a conversion or a replacement of an existing structure that does not comply with setbacks, that is allowed as well. So there are some standards that are reserved to city discretion. So the city can require 1 parking space per unit unless it's located within these 3 things, and that's half a mile of a high quality transit corridor, half a mile of a major transit stop, or within 1 block of a car share vehicle. In addition, the city can restrict urban lot splits to 2 units per parcel, essentially not allowing ADUs on these lots. So just to be clear, the legislation is very clear that we can restrict ADUs if we so choose on urban lot splits, but it's not so clear if somebody does a 2-unit development without doing an urban lot split. So for public comment, today, both city staff and city council received a letter from the Responsible Growth in Marin addressing topics such as the Eichler Alliance District requirements, building permit fees, as well as affordability requirements for SB 9 applications. And just real briefly, there is a maximum height of 17 feet in the Eichler Alliance District, and we absolutely can and will implement that for SB 9 applications, as long as it does not preclude the construction of 2 units of at least 800 square feet. So that's sort of the criteria. With that, staff recommends City Council adopt a resolution directing the preparation of interim guidance rules and regulations to implement SB 9, the California Home Act, and directing the preparation of an SB 9 implementing ordinance. And so what the interim guidance and rules would basically be staff creating a document that lays out all of the existing objective development standards that we have on the books that we can implement, as well as making use of certain things that we can go ahead and implement, such as the parking and restriction on ADUs. And then in the meantime, we can go ahead and start drafting the implementing ordinance and bring that to council in the coming months. So that concludes my presentation. And available to assist me with questions tonight are Community Development Director Alicia Judici, as well as the City Attorney, Neera Doherty. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, and welcome. Nothing like starting and jumping right in, so thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Maybe if you stop sharing your screen, we can see each other. And in the meantime, I will turn it to the Vice Mayor for any questions.
Well, welcome, Jeff. Nothing like being in front of the council your first month on the job. So sink or swim, that's what we think. My question is, when you come back to us with basically the work that we're authorizing you to do now, do you see the SB 9 ordinances and programs as being a sort of standalone set of rules, or is this going to be something that's going to be sprinkled through a bunch of different ordinances?
Great question. I'll take a shot, and maybe Neera or Ali can jump in if I misstep. But my assumption is basically we're going to be going and revising the code wherever it exists. So there's a number of provisions in the zoning ordinance, for instance, in our base district regulations for single-family residential zones. There's things like setbacks, maximum height, lot coverage. There's regulations specific to hillside development, as well as there's provisions in our subdivision ordinance. And so there's all sorts of different areas where we need to make sure that they're consistent. But yeah, actually, I would be curious to hear what Neera has to say. I don't think we've quite talked through this.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Neera Doherty with the City Attorney's Office. I agree with Jeff. I think the approach we're going to take is one that many, if not most, cities are taking, which is to bring back an ordinance that is a standalone ordinance, sort of similar to your ADU ordinance. The state modeled SB 9 to a large extent, off of the state ADU laws. And so we think the best way to address the SB 9 urban duplexes and urban lot splits is to have a set of standards that just applies to housing developments and lot splits that are proposed under SB 9. So it will mirror to a large extent, which will make your review hopefully easier, the ADU ordinance that you all just approved recently.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kurtz.
Thank you for the update. It was you summarized it very nicely to understand, because there was a lot of information there. I am hearing a lot of potential amendments coming through. Are we seeing that that's going to happen, or is this pretty much what we need to work on right now in terms of implementation?
I'll defer to Neera if she has any information.
Councilmember Kurtz, can I clarify, are you referencing amendments at the state level?
I've heard of this. I mean, I think it's more community-based organizations wishing to amend what's already been approved. If there's any, how successful do we think anything's going to happen at this point to change what that's already been passed?
Well, I think that, there is, as I'm sure you're all aware, there's some legislation moving through the state right now that would sort of unravel the series or a number of state laws that some cities and advocates think usurp local control and have imposed on cities a number of mandates that cities cannot utilize their discretion or subjective standards to review housing projects. That includes state ADU laws, now SB 8, 9, and 10, the Housing Crisis Act, SB 35. So there is that piece of legislation that is being proposed as an initiative for the 2022 ballot. So that is something that could unravel SB 9. I don't think that the state is considering amending SB 9 at this point. We are seeing in many of the cities that we work with, advocates from both sides of the aisle requesting that cities consider certain standards when adopting their SB 9 ordinances. And so as we move through that process, you will probably hear more of that, and we will hear more of that, and we will bring you an analysis of which requests we think are consistent with the state laws and which we think are inconsistent.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. And I just have one question myself. Is there any timing for implementation of what we're talking about? I know we have this on the agenda this tonight. It seems like there is some evolution that's going on, but are there any like hard stop dates or yeah?
Yeah, so if you adopt the resolution for the interim guidance document, we would work to get that ready and done within beginning of January. And in terms of the implementing ordinance, I think we'd really hit the ground running. And Alicia can maybe jump in, but I'm thinking first it would need to go through Planning Commission and then to you all, and so possibly March.
Right. Right. Thank you. And are there any requirements? I didn't phrase it very well. From the state level, that you have to have done this by X date. I'm just trying to figure out, the context for these decisions.
Yeah.
Director Judith. Yeah.
So we have to have something in place by January 1st. So starting January 1st,
okay,
an application for an SB9 application could come through. So adopting a resolution would be the most effective way to have something in place so that we're prepared. And then subsequent to this, we'll be exploring an ordinance that would evaluate whether there are additional standards in addition to our current objective standards that would be important to include in an ordinance, in a future ordinance.
Thank you. No, because I had read that in the staff report, and I just want to have clarity around it, being that this is the last council meeting of 2021. We need to have it in place by January 1st. Otherwise, there's ramifications to that. So that's why it's important we're having it tonight. Okay. So with that, I will ask the city clerk to help out with public comment on this item.
Thank you. To comment on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature. And if commenting by telephone, please press *9. And once you've heard a notification that the host is inviting you to speak, you'll need to press *6 to unmute yourself. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to provide public comments, and they'll be muted once time has elapsed. I do see a couple of hands raised.
Yeah, this is John Reynolds, a resident of the canal. I appreciate this possibility. I was very much impressed with the presentation on the homeless update. That was very helpful. You're really looking towards doing some good things with the a summit on homelessness and tiny homes and all that kind of thing. And we're really concerned about the encampment and the rain there. But that's not relating to this. This is relating to, I guess what I understand from this is that this is to provide a way that ADUs and junior ADUs could be built in this area. And that strikes a note for affordability. Am I correct? I didn't totally look at this report, and I'm not sure I'm on target with that question or not, but if you could help me with that, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Yeah, after public comment, we will ask staff to speak to the intersection of ADUs and JDUs with this resolution. So yes.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Kate, City Council members and members of staff, and welcome, Jeff. My name is David Smith. I'm with Responsible Growth in Marin. And Jeff, I want to thank you. You must be pulling your hair out trying to understand the ins and outs of SB9 and how that interacts with local ordinances and stuff. And I've tried to read it and I can't get my head around it yet. You also did respond to one of the questions I was going to have, which was about the Eichler and Alliance overlay district and the height restrictions there. And you say that you will still be able to impose those providing the 800 square feet thing is satisfied. But the Eichler Alliance overlay district also requires the new construction to have the unique design character aspect of it. And so I'm hoping that you'll also impose those restrictions on any new construction that that SB9 might be allowing there. Thank you.
Thank you for your input.
Hello, this is Shirley Fisher calling. I also want to speak to the Eichler Overlay District, particularly because the Eichler and Alliance neighborhood is one of the few neighborhoods of this example in the entire country. It's not a historic labeled district, but it is one of the few intact communities of this style of architecture that not only is unique style, but it also was post-World War II, connecting working class people with their environment, making a style of living, that indoor-outdoor living that's uniquely Californian. I would like to ask specifically if the maintaining the ordinance is how likely it is that you would be able to maintain the overlay ordinance for these SB19 projects, and if it is not maintained there, what position does it put the other homeowners adjacent to those projects in who would still be subject to the ordinance, specifically 17-foot height, but also the overlying character of the neighborhood. And I know that SB9 does not allow you to consider that, but I'm wondering how that overlay ordinance will interface with projects that come up in these neighborhoods. Thank you for the comment.
Thank you, Shirley. Always nice to hear from our Citizen of the Year, and we will answer your question after we receive public comment.
I see no other hands raised, so I'll remind anyone who's calling in that they need to press *9 to raise their hand. I see no further public comment.
Thank you, City Clerk. I will close the public comment. I heard two questions. One is if you could speak to the intersection between what we're talking about tonight and ADUs and JDUs, because it is confusing. And then the second, to maybe go a little bit further in specifically on the Eichler overlay and the uniqueness of that and how that intersects with SB9. So I guess, Jeff, we'll start with you, and you'll call in Nira and Director Judici as needed.
Absolutely. For the first question, basically what current law allows is for someone to have 3 units. So they could have the primary house, then ADU, and the junior ADU. What this does is now basically allows someone to have 4 units on a single family parcel. They could either do the urban lot split where they have 2 units on each parcel, and those are called primary units. Those aren't necessarily ADUs or junior ADUs. And I think this is my slide was trying to make clear is we're still not clear how ADUs can be incorporated if somebody does not do an urban lot split, but potentially you could do 4 units as well. In that case, we have 2 primary units and 2 ADUs. So maybe this is a good time for Mira or to jump in if I mischaracterized anything on that question.
Yeah, I think you answered it. I think you'd had the slide too, and we'll keep bringing it up because it comes down to numbers. But yeah, no, why don't we go on to the next question?
Absolutely. And so for this one, I think the basic response is, are the standards objective? I looked up the response for the definition for objective, but basically they're more like things like numerical standards, like maximum height and setbacks and that sort of thing. Standards where you try to say, matches the character of something, that's not quite objective. Also just being 2 weeks in on the job, I'm not quite familiar with how we really implement the EA overlay district. So I would really look into some assistance.
Yeah, I can definitely step in. So the Eichler Alliance standards or design criteria include at least one standard, and that is the height limit. And that's an objective standard that we can apply with this SB9, with an SB9 application. There are other things like in character with the other Eichler Alliance homes that those are subjective, we wouldn't be able to apply. It wouldn't be easy for us to say, yes, all of us would need to be able to understand what that means. And so in those cases, we would not be able to apply to an SB9 project. Similar to that, we have things like the hillside districts, and I think that's one of the comments that came up is, are we able to apply hillside development standards? And for the most part on hillside lots, we have standards that are objective, setbacks, step backs that have a numerical measure tied to it. And those we would be able to apply. However, things like in character are more elusive and subjective, and we would not be able to apply those to an SB9 project.
Thank you. It seems like this is a topic that in 2022, as the district council members go out and get in conversation with their communities to maybe, I see Councilmember Kurtz is nodding her head. I know she'll have a gathering probably early part next year and can talk further to this. And as you pointed out, it'll be at the Planning Commission too. So there'll be lots of opportunity to continue to define and illustrate how the SB9 will manifest in San Rafael. So thank you again, Jeff. Thank you. Welcome. And thank you for that report. And Nira, always nice to see you. And thank you, Director Giudice. So with that, I would, let me see, is there one? Oh, no, one. There's just one motion that is needed to adopt the resolution. If one of my colleagues would make a motion. Councilmember Kurtz, go ahead.
Sure, I'm happy to do it. I'm trying to find the wording. Hold on one second.
Okay.
Where is it? Here we go. I'd like to make a motion, resolution directing staff to prepare an interim guidance document establishing standards and review procedures for ministerial review of 2-unit residential developments in urban lot splits to implement SB9, the California Home Act, and directing the preparation of an SB9 implementing ordinance.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye, that motion carries 3-0. Thank you, staff. Really appreciate your help on this one. Moving along, our 2 more items, I think, on our agenda. This one is the Emergency Vehicle Preemption of Traffic Signals Public Safety Initiative. Boy, we are having all different topics this evening. They're running the gamut. So welcome, Rafat.
Mayor, this is Bill Guerin. I'm going to introduce Rafat Ray. My camera is disabled, unfortunately, so I can't be with you visually, but I'm going to introduce Rafat for this topic. We have an opportunity to bring vehicle preemption to San Rafael based on several investments that have been made over the last couple of years. It's an exciting opportunity to give police and fire vehicles the opportunity to go through intersections quickly and have the signal work in their favor as they do that. Rafat's going to present the information to you tonight, and we're looking forward to your support of this initiative, I hope. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Bill. Good evening, Mayor Kate, members of the City Council. It is a pleasure for me to present this item to the City Council as one of the last items of the year. It's very positive, and it is a product of a collaborative effort by many staff members from various departments to bring San Rafael such an innovative and technologically advanced solution that will eventually save many lives. I have a presentation that I would like to share just to show you some photos as we go along. I hope you can see this.
Yes, we can.
Let me just go into
the slide mode. Yep.
Let me go on slide mode. I have just give me a second, please. This is better.
I think it's, oh, there it is. Perfect. Yep.
All right. So emergency vehicle preemption is not something new. It presents a community service benefits, allows emergency personnel to respond to emergency a lot quicker through traffic signals without endangering anybody's safety as they do it without preemption. And it improves the response time, and it brings safety for all. This project is all about safety. It will be what we're proposing is to equip 56 of our vehicle fleet, emergency vehicle fleet. Every emergency vehicle will be allowed to do the preemption. They will have transceivers installed, and the typical installation usually requires investments, heavy investments on the vehicles and on the signal infrastructure. Because we did invest, as Bill mentioned, in the downtown traffic signals. We updated about 55 traffic signals using grant money, And we specifically invested in a product called a Smart Link. It's a product of MyoVision. MyoVision is our vendor for the traffic detection cameras and also the SPM, the signal performance measures, that you will be seeing reports from now and then about how well the system operates in terms of delay, progression, pedestrian movements, etc. So the ability was made available because we invested in SmartLink. The GPS for a fire truck, as soon as the fire truck starts moving with a code 3 full siren, the GPS, the global positioning system, will transmit a signal to the Wayland, who is one of our partners. And Wayland Cloud will project speed and direction of the moving vehicle and will be able to trigger a green light for the signals that the fire or the emergency vehicle is going towards. This is how it works. The EVP, the emergency vehicle, starts moving with code 3. Wayland starts transmission, something very similar to this device. Wayland Cloud logs in the speed and direction of travel, send it to another partner, Global Traffic Technologies, who the city will be engaged with in a contract. The GTT cloud is activated, and the cloud is talking to our cloud, which is the signal received by MyoVision Cloud. And knowing the speed and the direction of the vehicle, the signal is, the traffic signal is eventually activated. And it's activated long before the fire truck arrives there. So it gives some room and some safety for maybe some queue to dissipate in front of the emergency vehicle. The beauty about this internally is that it is a Together San Rafael project. The police, finance, city manager's office, public works, digital services, city attorney, and the fire department collaborated on this solution. And they each, staff members from each of these departments participated in making this a reality for San Rafael to bring the benefits. It's also, it's very congruent with the guiding principles of togetherness in San Rafael. There's the collaboration across departments is obvious. The design with the customer in mind. The customer is the beneficiary in the long run as the response time is reduced. It is very creative. It is out there in terms of technology, and we ask, why do we do this? We ask, why do we want to continue to do it the old-fashioned way with the heavy investment while we have this cloud solution available? All members were open to change. Really appreciate and value my colleagues in the police department, fire department. That is a change for them. It was a change for everyone. Digital services had to jump in and evaluate the technological aspect of this. And Nadine and finance department made sure that that this is a responsible fiscally as well. The project advantage, number one, we will equip 56 vehicles, will be upgraded with the modem, Wayland modems, transceivers. The system will start working immediately. We really don't need to do any adjustments. And I checked and double checked with our vendors that once the clouds, do this handshake, they call it, or whatever, they work seamlessly together. The payment for this system is spread over the next 10 years. $54,000 a year is the contract that the council is considering allowing the city manager to sign on behalf of the city. Preemptions are recorded. Anytime the signal is activated, now it's being logged by the emergency vehicle equipment, but we will have a log of these activities on our traffic signal master and in our cloud and in our SPM, the signal performance measurement software as well. All of the software upgrades are part of this agreement. So we're very proud of the partnership that we made with 3 major vendors across the country. And they're fully committed to make this work because this is the way of the future. With that, the recommended action by the City Council is adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the city manager to execute the contract agreement with Global Traffic Technologies. That is the end of my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Deputy Public Works Director. I love that. So yes, thank you so much for that presentation. I don't have any questions, but let me see if the Vice Mayor does. So there we go. Thank you.
Just one quick question. Great presentation, very thorough. I'm very excited for the future. My question is about the ability to iterate. Will you be able to study the records as we implement this and see how it works in real life on the streets of San Rafael, and then iterate and adjust where necessary?
Definitely. The adjustments will be very, very easy to do. And the tracking of all movements of all vehicles will be to the second. So we will be able to monitor very closely what is exactly happening. And of course, we will have dry runs, and all of the equipped vehicles will make the testing necessary, and we'll do the adjustments before the whole thing is activated.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Councilmember Kurtz.
Well, you answered one of them about the testing. Thank you. In terms of this train and the signaling with the train, as well as with this project, how are those coordinated?
There is a hierarchy of command, basically. When the train signal comes in, nothing trumps it. The hierarchy of command is very clear and is defined in something called MTC IP. It's a national protocol in how traffic signals work. So during the preemption, if a train, and ironically, Chief White asked the same question before, just yesterday, we were talking, and Chief White asked the same question, when nothing trumps a train. When a train command goes to the traffic signal, it stays in that mode until that command is lifted.
And so then the fire departments actually, however they're directed, will go around the train situation, presumably. Okay, I hope. What is the backup if this, and we know technology is all great until it's not. What is the backup system?
There's no backup. We have the ability to track. I mean, if the and right now, as it is up to the driver to use their judgment. So for any reason, if the signal is not green by the time the fire truck arrives there, of course the issue will be reported, but it's always up to the individual driving the truck. And maybe Chief White wants to elaborate on that as well. But there's no technological backup.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll just add briefly that the company officer, the captain on the apparatus, is generally responsible for the route and rate of travel. The engineer, also known as the driver, obviously has a responsibility of safely operating that apparatus, but is guided at all times by the company officer, who's exercising situational awareness and judgment about how that apparatus moves and where.
Great. Thank you. That's all. Sounds great. I mean, I think I'm sort of wondering, like, what happens today if we don't have, so, because this makes a lot of sense. And I think there's a number of areas I've seen this in practice, I believe, unless I'm just imagining it. No, nodding heads. Okay. So Chief Spiller, yeah.
So I would, what happens today is we rely on the best judgment of the vehicle operator, and anybody operating a vehicle code 3 manner has a due responsibility to exercise safety in the care approaching that intersection. I consider this technology, if you imagine being at 2nd Street and D at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you need to get to Loch Lomond, barring the train, not only does it address the movement of that patrol vehicle, but it also starts to change the traffic flow for the people that are blocking the movement of that vehicle. So it not only clears the intersection for the emergency vehicle, but it clears a path as the vehicle continues towards its intended destination. This compares with other older generation technology, line of sight devices, which in many cases, when you get to your scene, can further complicate traffic and other incoming units. This is very smart technology that I think will serve our public safety needs here in San Rafael.
Great. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I actually do have a question after my colleagues asked such excellent ones. So sometimes there are first responders from other jurisdictions that come through. So is this something that the County of Marin or Central Marin Police could buy the same software for their vehicles? And would they be able to utilize our system, or are they always distinct?
The plan is to invite other agencies to participate in this. And we have one of our vendors who is willing and stated that they're willing to extend the same offer to other agencies. I think this is a regional issue that we need to continue to talk about, and it would be wonderful to have all of the fire districts and emergency vehicle, emergency personnel utilize the same technology, so it will be standardized, at least in Marin County. There are many other systems out there that they, it complicates things, and this is a solution that seems very easy to apply, and all of our vendors were willing to extend the contract to other agencies.
So assuming this passes and when we get to the vote, will we be the first jurisdiction in Marin County that has this technology?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so we're leading the way. Just wanted to underscore that.
Yes.
Okay, with that, I don't see further questions. Oh, Councilmember Kurtz, did you have another question?
No, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Well, no, let's go to public comment first.
Oh,
and
sorry.
then make a motion. Yep. So I'll ask the city clerk to join us. There she is.
Thank you. If you would like to provide public comment, please use the raise hand feature. For commenting by phone, you can press *9. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to speak, and they'll be muted once time has elapsed. Lori, are you there?
I am, sorry. Hello, Lori Schifrin here. I'm very concerned that that Rafat said that he's talking to the vendors and not to somebody else who's actually used this. I will tell you that ever since C and D were changed to be like A Street, I see, and I live very close to here, all the time, people waiting at green lights to turn. And if you guys can turn the lights green and there's no place to go, there's no place to go. That was never the problem when C and D were one way. It's always been the problem when A was two ways. That's pretty much it. I mean, the other one is Lincoln Avenue near Ritter and Biomarin, that whole little conglomerate in there. That's like sitting at green lights all the time and not being able to go anywhere. So I don't know how this will come in handy if you give somebody a green light and they can't move. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. We'll answer your question about best practices too after public comment.
Hello again, this is Grace Garrity, and this is great. I applaud all of you who worked on it. I am hoping that since you are leading the way, that you basically in either the review or the RFP, et cetera, you did bring in some of your partners from some of the other cities, as well as other disciplines, so that hopefully they will adopt and all of Marin County will be on the same system. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Grace.
Thanks so much. Ava Crisanti here. I'd just like to point out, I think it's great that you're really thinking through these things on emergency vehicles at these intersections. I want to point out that we have an upcoming emergency with Omicron, and you have an opportunity here. It's a little distressing to realize that you haven't made any time on this agenda to talk about how you're re-upping safety measures, providing proper mask distribution and education about masks, especially to your most vulnerable community, which is the group living under the freeway underpass, which is where you chose to put them, where they're getting continually soaked in every storm, regardless of where they pitch their tent, to as counterpoint to what an earlier caller said who does not have much experience with that camp. Everyone in that camp needs an N95 or a KN94 mask, and they need to be instructed how to use them. And they need to have running water in that camp. Hand washing stations that are not routinely refilled are not of much use. Porta potties that are too few for too many people are a hazard to the people within the camp. And for the small amount of money that you will spend making sure these people are properly, housed during the winter in a room key, for example, you will save money by not being sued later on. I've been warning you since July when you started this camp that you had a serious liability, and it is so unnerving to sit through this meeting and to see that your one response is to pat yourselves on the back for what you've been doing instead of reconciling with where you're at now. This is an emergency. Thank you.
Any other public comment on the preemption of traffic signals? That is the agenda item in front of us.
I see no other hands raised. I'll give everyone a couple more seconds. I see no further public comment.
Okay, I will close the public comment and bring it back for additional comments or a motion. I think Councilmember Kurtz, you had started to make a motion. Oh.
I'm happy to make a motion if we're ready.
Yes, why don't you go ahead? You have the wording there. It's a long
one.
Okay.
All right. I'd like to make a motion for a resolution approving and authorizing the city manager to execute a master sale of goods and services agreement with Global Traffic Technologies to provide preemption services for police and fire vehicles at signalized intersections.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye, that motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Rafat, and thank you, Chiefs, for bringing this to us. And we look forward to getting an update after it's been in progress. So thank you.
Thank you. Have a good time.
Yep. Okay, we have 2 more items on our agenda. The next one up is 2022 Vice Mayor. Unlike other jurisdictions in Marin County, we have a mayor that doesn't rotate, but we have a vice mayorship that rotates. There's no staff report on this. I will go right to public comment, I guess, before we make a motion. I see the city clerk. I haven't done this before because this is a new one for me.
Thank you. If you would like to provide public comment, please use the raise hand feature, or if you're calling in, please press *9. I see no public comment.
Thank you. So if there aren't any comments, it's a small group tonight, but I will, I guess, turn it over to the current vice mayor for any comments or possibly a motion.
It's a small but mighty group, a mighty group. It has been an honor to serve as a vice mayor to the first a woman elected mayor of the city of San Rafael in our 143-year history. Continuing that tradition, I'm pleased to nominate Rachel Kurtz to be the vice mayor for 2022.
City clerk, can I second that?
I hope so.
I'll second that. Thank you.
Yes.
And thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Appreciate the nomination, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity.
And before we go to roll call, I do want to thank the current vice mayor. It was a tumultuous year, to say the least, and we've had 3 new council members who, boy, hit the ground running and started to ramp up. And having the steady guidance of the vice mayor was really helpful to me. So I'm very grateful to that. And with that, I think there's been a motion in a second, and we'll have a roll call.
Vice Mayor Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye. That motion carries 3-0. Vice Mayor, soon to be Vice Mayor Pro Tem Kurtz, I look forward to working with you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
And the other, as we look forward to 2022, the City Council, as the community knows from watching the meetings, we are on several committees. We represent San Rafael on other boards, and we always review those commitments at the end of every year. I think this year there were very few changes, part of that being, as I just mentioned, we had 3 new council members and people are getting their feet underneath them. And so there is no staff report. The committee appointments were in the staff, in the staff report, or in the packet. What am I looking for? So let me go right to public comment on this item.
If you would like to provide public comment, please use the raise hand feature or press *9. There is a hand raised. Oh, it went away. I'll give everyone a couple more seconds just in case.
Okay, yep, this is commenting on city council appointments.
I see no public comment.
Okay, thank you, City Clerk. We'll close the public comment, bring it back for any additional comments or motion. I know this was reviewed by all of the council and discussed, so is there any changes?
I move that we adopt the City Council appointments to committees as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Aye.
Mayor Kate.
Aye. That motion carries 3-0. And I think that's the end. I know that's the end of our agenda. I'll give staff a few minutes for those that are that are still there to, so we can see everybody, because we're closing out the year. Just give everyone a moment. So I started the meeting with gratitude and really describing all the things that the council is grateful to, our staff, our residents, each other. And I want to end this meeting with gratitude. We got to end the year in gratitude, and let's add optimism to that. It has been a tough year, and I'm just eternally grateful, as I know the entire council is, to our staff who you see on the screen. You guys, all of you, have done an incredible job, both the ones here and the ones that are off the screen, to keep our city running. It seemed like in the beginning, every month there were new ordinances or new mandates, and continually you pivoted and evolved with new information. So I'm grateful for all of your work. 2022, here we come. So have a nice break between Christmas and New Year's, as the city manager said, except for essential public safety. We will be closed, and we will be ready and back in action in 2022. So together we will make progress, and be well, be safe, and I'll see you in the new year. This meeting is adjourned.